There is a decision you make every single morning that most men over 60 never think twice about. It happens before the day has made any demands, before the coffee is ready, before anything else. It happens the moment you open your kitchen and decide what goes into your body first. And here is what I want you to understand, what almost no one takes the time to explain, because this single morning choice is not simply about energy or digestion or getting through to lunch. What you eat for breakfast determines what happens inside the blood vessels supplying your penis at 3 o'clock in the morning. Not what you eat for dinner. Not what you take before bed. Your breakfast. I know how that sounds. Stay with me, because once I walk you through the biology, it is one of those things you cannot unknow, and it is going to completely change how you see the first meal of your day. My name is Dr. May Anderson. I am a board-certified urologist with over 20 years of clinical experience working specifically with men's sexual health and vascular performance in men over 50. What I have observed clinically, and what the research increasingly confirms, is that the overnight recovery window, those hours between roughly midnight and 5 in the morning when your body is supposed to be rebuilding the endothelial lining of your blood vessels, restoring nitric oxide capacity, synthesizing testosterone, and regenerating the vascular tissue that erections depend on. That window either succeeds or it fails based largely on what nutritional materials you gave your body at the very beginning of the day. Most men have this backwards. They focus on what they consume close to bed when they think about overnight performance. And those choices matter. But the nutrients that drive your overnight vascular repair cycle are not primarily the ones that arrived at 9 in the evening. They are the ones that were absorbed and positioned in your tissues during the morning. The reason comes down to something called the nutrient transport window, your body's peak absorption efficiency. The period when your gut is most effective at pulling compounds from food into the bloodstream and directing them toward the tissues that need them is closely aligned with your morning cortisol surge. Cortisol peaks naturally between 6 and 9 in the morning, and it does something most people never consider. It directly increases intestinal permeability and accelerates the rate of nutrient uptake from the gut into the bloodstream. That morning cortisol spike is not just what wakes you up. It is a biological loading window for everything that follows, and many of the compounds that support pelvic blood flow, the ones that build nitric oxide, repair the endothelial lining of your penile arteries, protect the testosterone your body tries to synthesize during deep sleep, they are slow-acting. They need 6, 8, sometimes 10 hours to move through their conversion pathways before they reach peak biological activity in the tissues where they matter most. What you put into your body at 7 in the morning is what is arriving at your vascular tissue at midnight, when the repair window opens. And I want to be specific about what that window actually looks like inside your body, because most men have never had this described to them clearly. Between approximately 1 and 4 in the morning, during your deepest REM cycles, your blood pressure drops to its lowest point of the entire day. Your endothelial cells, the single-cell thick lining of every blood vessel in your body, enter active regeneration mode. Growth hormone pulses. Testosterone synthesis in the Leydig cells reaches its overnight peak, and the penile tissue itself undergoes recurring vascular activity that your body uses as a maintenance protocol to keep that tissue oxygenated and responsive. When the right nutrients are present in your bloodstream during those hours, all of that repair happens more completely. When they are not, your body is attempting restoration with an empty supply chain. So when I tell you that breakfast is the most consequential vascular decision you make every day, I am not using wellness language. I am describing biochemistry. And once you understand that framing, the 3 breakfast combinations I am about to give you are going to make complete sense. Now, there is one addition, one specific ingredient, that I put into all 3 of these breakfasts. One that most men have never once considered for this purpose, that has a legitimate, clinically studied mechanism for addressing the specific testosterone problem most men over 50 are dealing with, and that complements every other ingredient in each blend without overlapping their mechanisms. That ingredient is ground fenugreek seed. Half a teaspoon, every morning, in whichever breakfast you choose. And I want to explain clearly what it does before we get into the combinations, because understanding the mechanism is what makes the whole picture click. Fenugreek seeds contain a class of compounds called furanolix saponins, specifically protodiosine. These compounds work in a way that is almost surgically targeted for the testosterone problem most men over 60 are living inside without understanding it. In most men at this age, the body has not stopped producing testosterone. Total testosterone production is still occurring. The problem is that a large portion of that testosterone, in many men, the majority of it, is being captured and locked away by a protein in the blood called sex hormone-binding globulin. SHBG grabs testosterone and renders it completely unusable. It cannot reach your muscle tissue. It cannot reach your brain. It cannot reach the penile vasculature. It is circulating, technically present on a blood test, but biologically silent. This is precisely why so many men come to my clinic with testosterone results that look acceptable on paper and still feel completely depleted. The total number seems fine. The free usable testosterone, the only form that actually drives desire, morning response, firmness, and blood flow, is almost nothing. Fenugreek's furanolix saponins directly suppress SHBG production in the liver. When SHBG falls, testosterone that was locked away is freed. Not new testosterone. Existing testosterone, finally becoming bioavailable to the tissue that needs it. A published study in phytotherapy research examining the effect of fenugreek extract on men's hormonal profiles found meaningful increases in free testosterone alongside significant improvements in sexual function scores, without any increase in total testosterone. The testosterone was always there. Fenugreek removed the cage around it. Fenugreek also contains a unique amino acid called 4-hydroxyisoleucine, found in almost no other food source, which improves insulin sensitivity specifically in skeletal muscle. This matters for blood flow because chronic low-grade insulin resistance, almost universal in men over 50, creates conditions where post-meal glucose spikes cause microscopic inflammatory damage to the inner walls of blood vessels, including the delicate vessels feeding the penis. 4-hydroxyisoleucine dampens those post-meal spikes, protecting the endothelial lining from the daily accumulation of vascular damage that progressively suppresses nitric oxide production over years. And fenugreek's galactomannan fiber slows the absorption of everything else you eat it with, creating a slow-release delivery profile across the morning that positions these compounds in your system precisely for the overnight window I described. 1/2 teaspoon ground, stirs easily into all 3 breakfasts I am about to give you. The flavor is faintly bitter with a slight maple undertone. It disappears entirely inside the stronger tasting ingredients in each combination. Before we go into the breakfasts, if you are a man over 50 who has been searching for honest, science-based answers to what is happening with your blood flow, your energy, or your morning response, subscribe to Vital Health Seniors right now and turn on the notification bell. Every video I publish on this channel is built on clinical evidence, designed specifically for men in this phase of life, and I do not want you to miss what is coming. And drop your age in the comments right now, just the number. I read every single one, and those answers shape what I create for you each week. Now, breakfast 1. This combination is built around steel-cut oats. Not instant, not quick-rolled steel-cut, which are whole oat groats that have been sliced rather than pre-cooked and flattened. That distinction matters beyond texture. In steel-cut form, the beta-glucan fiber that oats contain takes significantly longer to be broken down in your gut, which creates a sustained modulation of your blood glucose through the entire morning, which, as I explained, directly protects your endothelial lining from the glucose spike damage that accumulates over decades and progressively shuts down nitric oxide production. But here is what makes oats genuinely remarkable in the context of penile blood flow that almost no one talks about. Oats are the only grain on earth that contains a class of polyphenol called avenanthramides. Not found in wheat, not in rice, not in any other food source, exclusively in oats. And what avenanthramides do at the vascular level is something I find clinically extraordinary. They directly upregulate the expression of endothelial nitric oxide synthase, the enzyme inside the cells lining your blood vessel walls that manufactures nitric oxide. Research from Tufts University demonstrated that avenanthamide consumption produced measurable increases in nitric oxide production in vascular tissue, and improvements in endothelial function through a mechanism completely independent of the dietary nitrate pathway. This is not beet juice. This is not substrate delivery. This is your body's own nitric oxide machinery being upgraded. The factory itself becoming more productive. Oats also naturally contain L-arginine at roughly 4 grams per 100 grams dry weight, the direct molecular precursor your endothelial cells use to produce nitric oxide through their own synthesis pathway. When you have avenanthramides priming the enzyme and arginine supplying the raw material simultaneously, you are getting a compounding effect that neither provides alone. Into this oatmeal as it cooks, add the half teaspoon of ground fenugreek, stirred in with 2 or 3 minutes remaining on the heat, so it fully incorporates. Then add 1 teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon. Not cassia, which is the standard cinnamon on most grocery shelves, but Ceylon, the true cinnamon with a lighter flavor and a different active compound profile. The specific compound in Ceylon cinnamon called cinnamaldehyde activates the NRF2 pathway in vascular cells. NRF2 is one of your body's master regulatory systems for antioxidant production and cellular stress response, and when it is activated in endothelial cells, it upregulates nitric oxide synthase expression, while simultaneously reducing the inflammatory cytokine production that stiffens arterial walls over time. This is a third independent mechanism pushing nitric oxide output upward in the same breakfast. Once the oats are off the heat, stir in 1 tablespoon of raw honey. Add it after you remove the pot from the stove, because heat above about 40 degrees begins degrading honey's active compounds. Raw honey contributes boron in meaningful quantities. Boron works on SHBG through a complementary pathway to fenugreek. They are not redundant, they are additive. Clinical data has shown that boron reduces SHBG, while simultaneously improving the activity of vitamin D in tissues, and vitamin D itself regulates how sensitive your testosterone receptors are. More receptor sensitivity means the free testosterone that fenugreek and boron are working to liberate actually binds more effectively when it arrives. Finish this breakfast with 2 tablespoons of raw pumpkin seeds scattered on top, not roasted, which oxidizes their delicate oils. Pumpkin seeds carry zinc in one of the most bioavailable forms available from any food source, bound to amino acids within the seed matrix rather than existing as the inorganic mineral salts in most supplements. Your aging digestive system absorbs food matrix zinc far more efficiently than synthetic tablet zinc, which becomes progressively less bioavailable as stomach acid production declines after 50. Beyond zinc, pumpkin seeds contain a class of compounds called cucurbitacins that inhibit 5-alpha reductase, the same enzyme that converts testosterone into dihydrotestosterone. When 5-alpha reductase is inhibited naturally, more of the free testosterone your fenugreek and boron have been liberating remains in its active form instead of being immediately diverted into a conversion pathway. That oatmeal bowl, fenugreek, Ceylon cinnamon, raw honey, raw pumpkin seeds, is working through at least 5 independent biological mechanisms for overnight blood flow. And because the beta-glucan keeps everything releasing slowly, those mechanisms stay active across the morning and into the afternoon, arriving at your vascular tissue during the overnight repair window with their effects still accumulating. Breakfast 2 is built around whole eggs, and I want to be direct about something before I explain what you mix them with. If you have been separating your eggs and discarding the yolk because of what you heard about cholesterol 30 years ago, you have been making a decision that is working directly against your testosterone. Testosterone is a steroid hormone. Steroid hormones are built from cholesterol as their primary molecular precursor. Without adequate dietary cholesterol, the Leydig cells in your testes are attempting to manufacture testosterone without their fundamental raw material. The egg yolk is one of the most bioavailable sources of the cholesterol your body uses for steroid hormone synthesis. Every morning you have removed that yolk, you have removed the substrate your testosterone factory depends on most. Put it back. This is not a contested point in clinical endocrinology, it is biochemistry. Now here is what you cook them with, and in what order because the sequence matters. Before you turn on the stove, take 1 garlic clove, crush it completely with the flat of a knife, and set it on your cutting board for 10 full minutes. Do not skip this step and do not shorten it. When garlic is crushed, a chemical reaction activates between two compounds, alliinase and alliin, that produces allicin. That reaction is time-dependent. A clove that goes from knife to pan within 2 minutes produces a small fraction of the allicin of one that was allowed the full 10-minute rest. After that rest, chop it finely into a pan with 1 tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil, at medium-low heat, not high heat, which destroys the active polyphenol. Add the chopped garlic first for 60 seconds, then add 2 large handfuls of fresh baby spinach. Spinach is the most nitrate-dense leafy vegetable available in most grocery stores, containing over 150 milligrams of dietary nitrates per 100 grams, sometimes significantly more. These nitrates are converted in your saliva by specific bacteria on your tongue into nitrites, which then convert in your stomach's acidic environment into nitric oxide through a pathway that is completely independent of your endothelial system. The dietary nitrate pathway bypasses whatever is happening inside your blood vessel walls. Even if endothelial dysfunction has been developing for years, spinach-derived nitric oxide bypasses that dysfunction entirely and enters the bloodstream regardless. Now here is the elegance of combining spinach with properly prepared garlic in this specific context. Allicin from the garlic inhibits ADMA, asymmetric dimethylarginine, which is the molecular brake on your body's own endothelial nitric oxide production. While spinach is providing nitric oxide through the dietary pathway independent of the endothelium, the garlic allicin is simultaneously freeing up the endothelial pathway to produce additional nitric oxide by removing the biochemical suppressor that was inhibiting it. You are running both production systems at the same time, with one compound clearing the way for the system the other one cannot reach. 2 independent inputs, 2 independent pathways, arriving at the same target. Allicin from morning garlic consumption also has a bioavailability window that extends through the afternoon and into the evening hours. The compound is present in your circulation and tissues through the overnight window, which matters specifically because allicin has been shown to directly protect the Leydig cells from oxidative stress during the night, when reactive oxygen species tend to accumulate and suppress testosterone synthesis, precisely during the hours when your body is attempting its peak overnight production. Scramble 3 whole eggs into the wilted spinach and garlic. Add your half teaspoon of ground fenugreek directly into the eggs as they cook. The olive oil you started with acts as a fat carrier that significantly improves the absorption of the fat-soluble active compounds from both the garlic and the fenugreek. These compounds are lipophilic. They dissolve in fat and are absorbed through the intestinal wall via a fat-mediated pathway that is dramatically more efficient than the water-based absorption route. You are not just cooking in olive oil for flavor. You are optimizing the delivery of everything else in this breakfast. This egg combination is addressing testosterone substrate supply through the yolk, Leydig cell protection through allicin across the overnight window, dietary nitrate-based nitric oxide through spinach, endothelial nitric oxide pathway liberation through ADMA inhibition, SHBG suppression through fenugreek, and fat-mediated absorption enhancement through olive oil. 6 biological contributors to overnight blood flow from a breakfast that costs under $3 and takes 8 minutes. Breakfast 3 is the one that will genuinely surprise you, not because the ingredients are unusual, they are all accessible, but because the primary mechanism it works through is one that virtually no conversation in this space has ever clearly explained. That mechanism is the gut hormone axis, and it is more relevant to penile blood flow and free testosterone in men over 60 than most doctors have ever taken the time to tell their patients. Full-fat Greek yogurt is the base. Full fat specifically for 2 reasons. First, the fat content provides cholesterol and saturated fatty acids that support steroid hormone synthesis, similar to the egg yolk argument, but in a fermented context where the fat also supports the survival and activity of the probiotic cultures present. Second, the fat dramatically improves the absorption of fat-soluble compounds from everything you mix into it, which matters for several of the additions that follow. Now here is the mechanism I want you to understand clearly, because this is what makes this breakfast genuinely different from everything else in this category. Your gut microbiome, the community of bacteria living in your intestines, is directly involved in how your body manages and eliminates estrogen. There is a specific functional subset of gut bacteria called the estrobolome, and these bacteria produce an enzyme called beta-glucuronidase. This enzyme regulates whether estrogen metabolites that your liver has conjugated for excretion are cleared from the body, or are instead deconjugated and reabsorbed back into the bloodstream. When your gut microbiome is healthy and diverse, the estrobolome works efficiently, estrogen gets cleared. When your microbiome is imbalanced, which after decades of antibiotic exposure, low-fiber diets, stress, alcohol, and processed food is extremely common in men over 60, beta-glucuronidase activity can shift in a direction that reactivates estrogen metabolites and allows them to be reabsorbed. Circulating estrogen rises. And as estrogen rises in a man's body, two things happen in sequence. SHBG production by the liver increases, locking away more of your already limited free testosterone, and the testosterone to estrogen ratio that governs desire, morning response, firmness, and the fundamental feeling of masculine vitality shifts further and further in the wrong direction. Probiotics in full-fat Greek yogurt, particularly strains including Lactobacillus reuteri, which look for specifically on the label, support a healthier estrobolome. They help restore proper estrogen clearance from the gut. When estrogen metabolite reabsorption decreases, circulating estrogen falls. When estrogen falls, the liver reduces SHBG production. When SHBG falls, free testosterone rises, working in the same direction as the fenugreek that you are also adding to this breakfast, but through a completely different system. You now have two SHBG suppressing mechanisms operating in parallel, one hormonal and one through the gut. This is also why this particular breakfast requires the most consistency to show its full effect. The estrobolome does not shift overnight. It takes weeks of daily probiotic exposure to meaningfully alter the microbial composition of your gut in a direction that changes how estrogen is processed. But when it does shift, and research has confirmed that it does shift with consistent daily consumption of the right probiotic strains, the downstream effect on free testosterone and the hormonal environment governing pelvic blood flow is cumulative, lasting, and unlike anything a single supplement can produce alone. Into 1 cup of full-fat Greek yogurt, stir your half teaspoon of ground fenugreek first. The slightly sour background of the yogurt integrates it without resistance. Then add 1 tablespoon of raw cacao nibs. Not powder, the actual nibs, which are pieces of minimally processed, fermented cacao bean. The distinction matters here. Nibs and powder both contain epicatechin, the flavonol that inhibits phosphodiesterase type 5 and directly activates endothelial nitric oxide synthase through the PI3K signaling pathway. But nibs retain significantly higher levels of theophylline, a naturally occurring xanthine compound that is largely destroyed by the alkalizing process used to make conventional cacao powder. Theophylline is a non-selective phosphodiesterase inhibitor, meaning it does not just target PDE5, it inhibits a broader range of the enzymes responsible for breaking down the downstream vasodilation signals in your smooth muscle cells. When theophylline from the nibs and epicatechin from the nibs are operating simultaneously, you have PDE5, specific inhibition and broader phosphodiesterase inhibition working in the same direction. The vasodilation signal lasts longer. Blood vessels stay open more fully. And because you are consuming this at breakfast, those compounds are present in your tissues and plasma when your overnight repair window opens. Add half a cup of blueberries. Blueberries contain anthocyanins, the deep pigment compounds that have been shown in endothelial research to protect nitric oxide from being destroyed by reactive oxygen species in the vessel wall before it can act. Think of the epicatechin and theophylline from the cacao nibs as generating and extending the vasodilation signal. Think of the anthocyanins from the blueberries as shielding that signal from premature destruction while it is attempting to reach its target. Building the signal with one set of compounds while simultaneously protecting it from the oxidative environment that breaks it down with another. This is the kind of convergent action that produces results that feel disproportionate to the simplicity of the ingredients involved. Finally, stir in 1 teaspoon of yellow maca root powder. Not red, not black, yellow maca specifically, because the different maca colors work through different mechanisms. Yellow maca acts primarily on the hypothalamic pituitary axis. It does not contain testosterone. It does not bind testosterone receptors. What it does is support the production of luteinizing hormone, the signal the pituitary gland sends to the testes instructing the Leydig cells to produce testosterone. Luteinizing hormone is the command. Testosterone is the response. What maca does is increase the strength and consistency of the command signal, which means your Leydig cells receive more consistent instruction to produce testosterone through the day and into the overnight hours when that synthesis is supposed to be peaking. The yogurt combination, fenugreek, cacao nibs, blueberries, yellow maca, is working through the gut hormone axis for estrogen clearance and SHBG reduction, PDE5 and non-selective phosphodiesterase inhibition through two distinct compounds, endothelial antioxidant protection for nitric oxide survival, and hypothalamic pituitary testosterone signal support. It operates at a hormonal regulatory level that no topical treatment, no vascular supplement, and no single food alone can reach. Because it is changing the systemic environment in which testosterone is produced, not just the downstream effects of that testosterone after it has already been compromised. Now I want to connect something for you, because this is what makes the combination of all three breakfasts greater than any one of them individually. You do not need to eat all three every single day. You rotate through them across the week. And each breakfast is building a different part of the same biological architecture. The oat blend provides its primary effect through avenanthramide-driven upregulation of nitric oxide synthase, and the glucose management that protects endothelial function across the full day. The egg blend provides its primary effect through testosterone substrate delivery, and the extended overnight Leydig cell protection that allisin's bioavailability window carries into the nighttime hours. The yogurt blend provides its primary effect through gut microbiome reset, and the hormonal axis recalibration that requires consistent daily probiotic activity over several weeks to shift the estrobolome meaningfully. Each breakfast is approaching the same target, pelvic blood flow and free testosterone, from a completely different biological direction. And fenugreek, present in all three, is the constant thread. It is addressing SHBG suppression and insulin sensitivity every single morning regardless of which blend you rotate to that day. Over 2 weeks of consistent rotation, any of the three breakfasts, fenugreek present every morning, the individual mechanisms begin compounding on each other. Free testosterone rising because SHBG is falling through three converging pathways. Nitric oxide production rising through avenanthramide-enhanced synthase upregulation, dietary nitrate delivery through spinach, and PDE5 inhibition through cacao nibs. The overnight repair window receiving adequate materials, cholesterol for steroid synthesis, allicin for Leydig cell protection, anthocyanins for nitric oxide preservation, for perhaps the first time in years. What most men notice first, in the early days of consistency, is not a dramatic physical change. It is subtler than that and more honest. A sense of warmth in the mornings that was not there before. A quality of waking up that is different in a way that is hard to immediately articulate, but impossible to dismiss. By the end of the second week, that difference typically becomes more specific. By the end of the third week, men describe something they did not expect, not just a physical change, but a feeling of presence they had stopped believing was still available to them. That is not coincidence. That is the overnight repair window finally doing the job it has always been designed to do, now that the nutritional materials it needs are arriving consistently and on time. Hit the like button right now. Not because I am asking you to support a channel, but because there are men watching this 6 months from now who are searching for exactly this, and will only find it if your engagement helps it reach them. Leave a comment telling me which of these 3 breakfasts you are starting with, and how old you are. I read every single response on this channel, and I will be in the replies. And subscribe to Vital Health Seniors, because every week on this channel I bring you the honest, specific, science-grounded conversations about men's health that most doctors genuinely do not have time to have with you in a standard appointment. Your breakfast is not just a meal. It is the most powerful vascular decision of your entire day. The morning cortisol window is open for a few hours, every single morning, waiting to be used. Start using it deliberately. Starting tomorrow.